Welcome back, everyone. How one blockchain became the silent architect of the new financial world order. Right now, there is 5 trillion dollars of liquidity crisis building in the global banking system. Central banks are trapped. Cross-border settlements take days. They lock up billions in transit. SWIFT is outdated infrastructure. And while everyone is debating whether XRP will replace the dollar, they're missing one actually they're missing one key point. XRP is becoming more of a neutral settlement layer for a world where nobody trusts anybody else's financial system. This is the geopolitical story that not many people are talking about. What we know is that global banks hold $5 trillion in pre-funded Nostro Vostro accounts. Money is sitting idle just to facilitate cross-border transactions. Swift settlement can take 3, 5 to 7 days. So that means that capital is constantly locked in transit. This isn't just inefficient, it's a liquidity crisis waiting to explode. And when the next financial shock hits, it's not going to be good. When Bank of America wants to send to Deutsche Bank, they don't actually send anything. They actually message each other through Swift. Then shuffle money between pre-funded accounts they hold at different intermediary banks. It's slow, it's inexpensive, it ties up massive amounts of capital. Now imagine this. You're a central bank looking at your balance sheet. You've got billions locked up in Nostro accounts, earning basically nothing. Meanwhile, your economy needs the liquidity. You want to free up the capital, but you can't because without it, your banking system can't process the international payments. And so this is where the XRP Ledger can play a strategic, critical role. The XRP Ledger basically settles transactions in 3 to 5 seconds, right? Not days, seconds. This means that banks don't need to pre-fund Nostro accounts. They can hold XRP as a bridge currency. They can convert it on demand, and they can free up trillions in capital and trap liquidity, right? So it's not about replacing the dollar. It's about liberating capital that currently is doing nothing. In December of 2025, we're actually seeing central banks testing this. We know Russia is exploring XRP integration to bypass SWIFT sanctions. The BRICS nations are piloting XRP for gold-backed settlement. We know Japan has already onboarded 80% of its major banks to XRP systems. So it's not just speculation I'm talking here. This is infrastructure being built in real time. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what's happening with BRICS. It's not about creating a BRICS coin that replaces the dollar overnight. That's kind of the headline that everyone's focusing on, but I think that's wrong. What the BRICS is actually building is a parallel settlement system where trade can be denominated in local currencies, backed by gold reserves with XRP as a neutral bridge. Think about it strategically, right? China doesn't trust US controlled SWIFT. Russia has been literally cut off from the system due to the sanctions. India doesn't want to have to depend on China's SIP system. Brazil wants its trade sovereignty back, and they all need a way to settle cross-border trade without using each other's national infrastructure. And so this is where XRP, a decentralized neutral ledger that no single nation controls, According to a report from Coin Journal, BRICS is exploring XRP as a commodity-backed settlement. Imagine Russia sells oil to India. India does not want to pay dollars due to U.S. sanctions and things like that. That means that Russia doesn't want rupees for inflation risk, so they settle with XRP, with the transaction backed in gold reserves held in a BRICS-controlled vault or BRICS-controlled bank, right? XRP becomes that digital settlement layer for the physical commodities. Now, multiplying that across BRICS plus nations, we're talking about economies representing half the world's population potentially using XRP as their settlement backbone. This isn't XRP going to $100 hopium. This is XRP becoming the neutral rails, basically, of a multipolar settlement trade system. That's a big difference. This part is what's mind-blowing. While Western banks are still exploring blockchain, Japan went all in. SBI Holdings, think of a Japan Goldman Sachs basically, has partnered with Ripple to create SBI Ripple Asia. They onboarded hundreds of Japanese banks, and by 2026, we expect 80% of Japan's banking infrastructure will run on the XRP rails for cross-border settlement. But here's where it gets really interesting. Japan isn't just using XRP for payments, they're building tokenized everything, right? They want to put their entire economy on the XRPL. Real estate, tokenized on the XRPL. Securities, tokenized on the XRPL. Supply chain, tokenized on the XRPL. In December of 2025, reports indicate Japan is exploring a national zero-knowledge ID system on the XRP Ledger. SBI even launched something called Hyper Deposit. It's a savings product that saves 0.42% interest plus XRP rewards. They're normalizing XRP as part of everyday banking. This isn't just some speculation again. This is XRP becoming a retail banking infrastructure in the world's third largest economy. Let's let that sink in just for a little bit. The timing is perfect. Japan's aging population needs efficient cross-border remittance. They send billions of dollars to family abroad. Their export economy needs fast, cheap B2B settlement. The government wants a digital, modernized infrastructure, right? XRP checks every single box. So hopefully by 2026, we could see Japanese pension funds holding XRP as a treasury asset. SBI is already filing for Bitcoin XRP dual asset ETF. In January 2025, Brad Garlinghouse had dinner with President Trump. 2 months later, XRP was included in the U.S. Crypto Strategic Reserve proposal. That's not a coincidence. Ripple spent nearly $800K on lobbying in 2025. They donated $4.5 million to Trump's inauguration. That's called strategic positioning. But here's the deeper story. The SEC's war against Ripple ended in March of 2025 with a $125 million settlement. Ripple's no longer fighting with regulators, they're basically advising them. In October of 2025, the federal governor, Chris Waller, proposed limited access master accounts for crypto firms. Translation, Ripple could soon have direct access to Federal Reserve payment rails. Think about what that means. Now pair this with geopolitics. If BRICS is building a XRP settlement system and Japan has standardized on XRPL, the US can't afford to ignore it anymore. Including XRP in the strategic reserve isn't an endorsement, it's a hedge. If XRP becomes a global settlement infrastructure, America needs to own enough to maintain influence. So that's real politics. Ripple knows this game. They didn't just lobby for XRP price pumps, they pitched Trump on the sole inclusion as well. Because if Ripple positions itself as the blockchain policy advisor to the US government, they win regardless of which specific token that they adopt. It's kind of like a 4D chess game, not just crypto shilling. Okay, ISO 2022 messaging standard. Think of it as the language that banks use to talk to each other. Swift's old MT system, that's being replaced. November 2025, Swift fully migrated to ISO 2022. And here's the kicker, XRP Ledger already natively supports this messaging standard. Because it means XRP can plug directly into existing banking infrastructure. A bank doesn't need to replace their entire tech stack to use XRP. They just integrate XRPL using the ISO compliant standard. It's like kind of adding a supercharged layer already to an existing engine instead of buying a whole new car. But here's the part that not many people are talking about. ISO 2022 isn't just for payments. It's for security settlement, trade finance, foreign exchange transactions, regulatory reporting, everything, which means XRPL isn't just competing for cross-border payment volume, it's competing to become a universal ledger for the entire financial system. Stocks, bonds, currencies, commodities, all tokenized and settled on one standardized protocol. And the banks are already testing this. We see Standard Chartered, Santerra Bank, American Express, PNC, all using ISO compliant RippleNet. They're not replacing their systems, they're augmenting it with XRP's settlement layer, where those things make sense for high value, time sensitive, cross border transactions. And here's a key insight, the ISO 2022 compliance is like a Trojan horse. Banks think they're just upgrading their messaging, but what they're actually doing is creating a standardized interface where XRPL can seamlessly integrate. By the time they realize XRPL is settling 20% of their cross-border volume, it's already indispensable. And that's how you win the enterprise game. Compatibility first, then disruption second. Thank you. Take care, guys.